Greetings folks, it's time for another Past Planes episode. This would be number 10 I think. It's been quite a few months since I did the last one. I'd actually caught up to all the planes that I'd been given or flown, so I needed to let time pass by a little bit more. So next on the list is the Texsumo wing. Now I bought the Texsumo wing mainly because it came with a Turnigy 9X radio, which I wanted to try and flash for OpenTX, and it came as a bundle with the Texsumo wing, bought second hand. I was surprised how much I liked the Texsumo wing actually. It's a very good flyer, almost indestructible EPP. Didn't fly particularly fast, but it was easy, indestructible, just a nice plane. And I used it to muck around with the Air3 iNav flight control board. That was good fun. I modded it a fair bit. I carved out bits, put different motors on and things like that. So it did its job very well. Didn't really like the colour scheme on it. It's a bit too garish, and you can't really paint or cover EPP foams, so looked a bit ugly I suppose, but yeah, it worked well. Next on the list is the Phoenix Evolution. It's the 2.6 1600 swappable version of the Volantex Phoenix, I suppose. Here it is here, and I absolutely love this plane. It is very close to my favourite plane. I have the ASW 28 thermal glider. I have the Radian 2 metre thermal glider. I think this is a better thermal glider than both of those. The Radian is very good, but it's just a bit boring to fly. This one has flaps and ailerons and nice tough plastic body. I have modded it a fair bit. I've got it permanently set up as the 2.6 metre wing. I didn't really like it in the 1600mm wing setup, and I've got rid of the joining bolts here, and I've just taped the wings together so that it's just purely a 2.6 metre wing version. It works beautifully on the slope as a powerful, graceful slope soarer. Easy to thermal, much easier to thermal than the ASW 28 I think. In fact, I've got the ASW 28 swapped over to I've got the wing on the Phoenix 2000 body, and that's now just a pure slope soarer. Talk about that in the next version I think, but Phoenix Evolution 2.6 metre wingspan, just a brilliant plane. Not everyone agrees with me. One of my flying buddies has bought one and he thought it was absolute rubbish. Quality control can be a bit of a problem. I think he had problems getting his wings to fit together or something like that, and these the wing joining bolts are very crude. So that's why I've got rid of them and just taped them together. I absolutely love it. I've had the best time thermaling with this plane, better than any other plane. Definitely in my top 3 planes I think. Absolutely love it. It has a larger tail section, larger elevator I think, but yeah, much more tail area. Awesome tough fuselage. I think it's a little bit longer than the Phoenix 2000. I can check that actually. No, the fuselage is probably exactly the same, but all the tail surfaces are bigger.
Oh, there we go. Jeez. It just popped up in a step. There we go.
Now, next up after that one is another big beast. This is the Zeta FX79 2 metre wingspan FPV cruiser wing I suppose it is. This is a beautiful, beautiful plane to fly. Heaps of space in here for batteries, flight control boards, whatever you want to put in here, cameras up the front. It's got little pop-out bits for receiver, flight control board, GPS, all that sort of stuff. The wings, the outer part of the wings are exactly the same as the FX61. It's just that this centre section is a little bit wider here. It's a beautiful wing to fly. The only hassle is it's 2 metre wingspan, so it's enormous. It's just a bit awkward to get it in and out of the car. If you can handle all that size, it's a highly recommended wing. Just very, very smooth. Beautiful cruiser. Slope soars beautifully as well. You can put hulking big motors on it. This is the Carbon Bird 1111 kV motor, which I really like. I've got a 3D printed motor mount in here as well that moves the motor further back, which works very well as well. I'm going to hang on to this one I do really like it, just that it's a bit too big really. Next up is the U-Glider, and this is the plane that I fly most. I fly this more than anything else. Amongst my friends, we've got about 4 or 5 or even 6 of these, I think. We love flying them as slope soarers. They're very much like a DLG, but you don't need to expend all the effort trying to get it up in the sky with a little motor. You motor up and fly around and search for thermals. As it comes, it's terrible. It comes with very, very weak little servos for the rudder and elevator, and a central servo with sort of snakes coming out to operate the ailerons. Really doesn't work. It's just a terrible idea. Number one, the servos are too weak and they strip really easily, and the big long sort of snaking push rods are just too much friction. They just don't work very well. So what I've done is put little individual servos in each wing, nice little thin 5 or 6 gram servos, and I've replaced the servos for the rudder and elevator as well. And I've actually supported the push rods going back too, because they were flexing all over the place, which means that you didn't actually have much control over the rudder and elevator. All up weight for this is about 350 grams. It is just a beautiful flyer, absolutely beautiful. Great fun thermaling with it. It's a brilliant slope soarer in light wind or strong wind, it doesn't really matter, it just works. There's enough space in here. I have a 950 milliamp hour 2-cell battery. I've swapped out the ESC as well, so that I can get ESC braking so that prop will fold back. There's enough space in here for a Vario. I've stripped out an X6R receiver and popped it in the space under the wing there. Can't recommend this highly enough, but you do have to do those mods. It's terrible as it comes, brilliant once you do the mods. I've put tape along the leading edge as well, because it cops a bit of a beating when it comes into land on the slope. Another one of my top 3 planes, I think. Get yourself one, you need it. Next up, my friend Andrew Crampton in Hong Kong sent me this plane because he had 2 of them and looking for someone else to pass it on to. It's an Acro version of the Magnum. It's all EPP, very lightweight, very indestructible, 3D plane. It's okay, I guess. Not really my sort of plane, I suppose. I don't fly 3D much at all. Although it's a fun little plane, and maybe I'll get into it eventually. Nothing wrong with it, just that maybe not my style of plane. Anyway, it may be in the future. The Acro Magnum. Next up came from Tech One Hobbies, the Craft Eye ME163, the little Comet. This isn't that plane. This is a newer version. This is the FPV version with a motor on the back. The original version had the motor on the front and it was camouflage green colour. It's a ridiculously fast little plane. Very, very exciting. Easy to fly, very easy to lose. It's so small and so fast that it's gone in a couple of seconds. It makes a lot more sense to have it on FPV because you can't lose it line of sight. This one probably isn't as fast as the original ME163, but it's so much more fun being on FPV. You go flat out, you're not going to lose orientation. It's just going to be a fast, ripping, rocket little plane. Anyway, the Tech One Craft Eye ME163. I think this is about the 600 or 700 millimeter wingspan. There is one little mod I did to the ME163, and that was to try and drop down the camera mount on the top. This FPV pod, I guess you call it, was up about, I don't know, 15, 20 millimeters higher than this. The FPV camera sort of sat up higher, and the HD camera sat up a lot higher there. So to try and cut down on the drag, make this thing go as fast as possible, I sort of chopped down these sidebars and dropped the mount point for the HD camera down as far as possible and popped a little a micro FPV camera in there. Alright, next up is the Cessna, the Dynam Cessna Agwagon. Now this is probably one of my favourite scale planes. It's got flaps, plenty of power, flies beautifully, nice dihedral on the wings. It's a plane that you can throw around, do short takeoff and landings, almost do aerobatics with it. It's just so much fun, and I think it looks great too. It's just crying out to be an FPV plane, I think, with a rotating camera up on the canopy here. A lot of the scale planes that I've got, I've flown for a little while and then just given them away or stripped the parts and thrown them away. This one I'm hanging on to, I love it. Some mods I did to the C188. I've angled the landing gear further forward, just for our rough grass landing strip. All I've done is sort of carved a little bit of a timber wedge and put it in there so that the landing gear has come forward a couple of inches or so. Just means that it's not going to tip over on the nose. I've also got the Trojan and the Dynam Tiger Moth. I'm hanging on to them because I like them. The Cessna C188 Ag Wagon. Moving along to something totally different. Here's another little Cessna, I guess, the Mini Volantex Mini Train Star. I usually avoid these little toy planes like the plague. I just think they're going to be terrible. This one is surprisingly good fun. It has a stabiliser in it. It's quite a crude stabiliser. You can see the plane wiggling like crazy, but it actually works. It's like a little bird learning to fly, I think. Great fun, and out of a tiny little 300 1S battery, you get about 10-15 minutes of flying. And you can have it totally stabilised, you can have it self-levelling, or you can have the mad fun of flying it manually, which is not that easy actually. So this was a real surprise to me. I really like this little plane. I'm going to hang on to this one. The Volantex Mini Train Star. Next up we have a plane that I bought myself from Banggood. This is the Rainbow Wing 800mm wingspan. It's a nice little wing. You can fly it nice and slowly, keep it nice and light, and just cruises around. Good fun. It's just a nice, slow flying little wing. Fairly indestructible, although I've managed to do some damage there. The ailerons are very, very floppy, so I've done a bit of reinforcing there. Helps a bit. I've got a nice little 6-bladed prop on there, which is super quiet, and it's just good for sort of cruising around in calm weather. Michael Downey and I have had a bit of fun sort of chasing each other with FPV on these things. They're good for that sort of stuff. So after that came the S800 wing, which is sort of the first of the race wings that came out. It was sort of a black moulded EPP, very nice little wing actually. The electronics that came with it were pretty terrible. The ESC, the FPV gear, all of that sort of stuff. Nobody liked that, so stripped it out pretty quickly and got rid of it. It had space to put a camera up the front, and FPV camera, like a GoPro up the front, and FPV camera, and actually needed all that weight up the front. That was a pretty good one. I've given it away now because I've got other wings that I like better. I found it wasn't all that smooth. It had a little bit of the wiggles and a little up and down, which makes sort of smooth photography quite difficult. Great fun ripping around on FPV. Stabiliser, yeah, worked quite well and was good for really fast cruising around. But I've now given that away to a friend to fly that, and I've moved on to other things. Next up came this monstrosity, which is the MyFlyDream Nimbus 1800, another big long-range FPV cruiser, twin motor, and it had really interesting sort of click-on and click-off wings that make all the electrical connections, including the ESC connections. Same with the tail, they just sort of unlatch and click off. Servos are down in this bottom part here, and they've got sort of mechanical linkages up to the tail surfaces. It came with a sort of a mounting bay for a particular sort of flight control board, which didn't come with the plane, so I couldn't try that out. It's all very serious, really designed for aerial mapping and that sort of stuff, which I don't do at all. It flew really, really nicely, but it's just another one of these planes that's just too big and awkward. It requires too many batteries, too heavy. Plenty of power, flew beautifully. But I've actually just listed this on RC Trader if anyone's interested in an airframe. Because although it works very well, it's not something I need really. So that'll do for this episode. Coming up in the next one we have some more race wings, Dynam Sonic, Dynam Pitts, and lots of other planes to look back on. Thanks for watching.